Grief Talk with Vonne Solis, the clips. Talking about things that are uncomfortable related to grief, suicide, trauma, and other situations helps us to start a conversation. And for those of us that need this conversation because we've been impacted by something that people don't want to talk about, is one of my missions to change on this podcast. So today we're going to be talking about the myths and truths of suicide. The myths, I'm going to be identifying 7 that have been written about recently in an article, which I will be putting the link below if you want some more detail on what clinicians have been identifying about suicide. And I was so ecstatic actually when I saw this article recently, because I did lose my daughter Janae at age 22 to suicide in July 2005. Needless to say, it was a shock. It's taken years and years and years to learn how to live with the trauma of that situation. I do have PTSD as a disorder, and I clearly have another disorder called prolonged grief disorder that was just recently entered into the DSM-5, the Diagnostic Manual for Clinicians, and otherwise known as complicated grief. So without a lot of conversation about things that are uncomfortable, including PTSD and now the new prolonged grief disorder, speaking about the myths of suicide was like, for me, opening up a Christmas present. And I was like, whoa, what's happening? What's new? Why are they talking about this? Why did this make an article, a full-blown media article, probably that went around the world? This article came out in conjunction with the rollout of a 988 National Suicide Prevention Hotline in the U.S. in mid-July. So I took a look at it and I thought, I'm going to share these myths, and I'm going to speak about what I can add from my perspective in my experience as a bereaved mother who has lived with a lot of stigma from the suicide of my child. And it is the same stigma I would offer that any loved one lives with, no matter the age of the individual in their family who died. Whatever the relationship was, suicides can have lasting impact on people that weren't even related to that person. Suicide is not just people of a certain age. It affects any race, any color, any of us in any socioeconomic situation, any level of education, any type of profession or job. It doesn't matter. No one is safe from losing a loved one to suicide. And I would argue no one is truly safe from the risk of even having just suicidal thoughts in reaction to something that is going on in our life that could be very temporary and immediate. So let's dive into the myths, okay? And let's see if it helps us change our mind about suicide. It helps us change our mind about a loved one if we have lost someone to suicide, and helps us actually just have a little bit of a different conversation about suicide.